down and usher. Nobody can usher sitting down. Usher is a good usher, one that knows how to guide the people, one that knows how to keep the level of commotion down in the church, that knows how to keep the whispering down, to keep order. Amen. You just like a bailiff that is in the courtroom. And when the bailiff see that you've gotten out of order, boom, you're going to be dismissed from the courtroom. Either you're going to be warned a couple of times, and ain't really a couple of times, you're going to be dismissed. You got to know how to use your authority. God didn't tell you that everybody coming to church was going to be pleasant. God didn't tell you as an usher everybody would like you. God didn't tell you that everybody was going to follow your order as an usher. No, you got some people that when you instruct them to go sit up front, they're going to sit up back. You got some people that when you say, hey, go sit back there, they're going to try to get to the front. Can I handle it? You say, let's do ministry. I love ministry. I love doing my will. I just love serving my pastor. I like being there for my pastor. I just love my church. But it is your church that will perfect you to come to the place of maturity. You don't run because there's an altercation. You don't run because things are not going your way. You don't run and try to. You see, one of the things that I've learned about church and ministry is that so many church people, I ain't talking about saints, I'm talking about church folk. Too many church folks try to be liked by the pastor. Too many people try to be accepted by people. You try to get to know everybody. Listen, if I don't know everybody in church, I am contented. If everybody do not like Prophetess Kirksey in the church, I am contented because I know that God did not place me in church to be liked by everybody. Somebody is going to disagree with you. Somebody won't like you. Somebody would not even like the shoes you have on tomorrow. But do I back up from ministry? Let's talk ministry, because now you're in a position. Let's go there. You're in a position and you think since you're in that position, you can just do what you desire to do, handle it carelessly. You think that you can. Wait a minute. When you go to your job gave you a requirement. And that requirement was for you to dress a certain way. It was for you to carry yourself in a manner that will reflect the company. Now listen, if you're in position, at least reflect the church. At least reflect the teacher. At least reflect the character of your pastor. I know they're not hacking on you. I know they're not telling you. But out of good character, I watch what I dress. I watch what I have on, because it's a reflection of my position. It is a reflection of who I am. It is a reflection of ministry. You're in position and you're careless. You're not on time. You're not on your post. You handle your position. When the crowd comes, we want the position. But when the crowd is not there, you can't even find the armor bearer sometimes unless they are good, faithful. I'm telling you, I look at church and I just look and say that so many people want to do ministry, but they don't want to do the requirements of ministry. When you go to McDonald's, you can't act like Burger King. When you go to Burger King, you can't act like you working in Golden Corral. You got to act like where you are. Tell somebody you got to be where you are. Either you're in this ministry for the ministry, or either you're trying to make us cater to the ministry you've just come out of. Either you're trying to make us to conform to what you think ministry ought to be. Listen, your pastor is the vision carrier. Your pastor wife are the vision carriers. You may have a part of the vision, but don't you get upset if your vision is not accepted. Don't get upset if your part of the vision is not orchestrated right now, is not received right now. Don't you go have no tantrum. Don't you go have I noticed that a lot of time when people are upset with their pastors or with their leader, they have very, very little conversation. They talk little of their pastor. They talk little of the ministry. And you can just about tell when there's an altercation between a pastor and a member. You just watch it and you just see. And if you notice that they're not corresponding, they're not putting up the flyers, they're not doing, you can just about tell. I tell you, we have so much going on in ministry. Can be enjoyable if we learn to come out of our flesh. It is our flesh that we want to be gratified. We want to be received by I'm going back to there. Everybody just want to be received. Honey, it doesn't matter if the clique let you in. if the clique don't let you in. Because when you came to church, when you joined the ministry, you joined it because you said God sent you there. You say, I came because of the word that was being proclaimed in the house. I joined the ministry because why? I was led of God. I didn't join to become a part of the clique. Sure, I want to be a part of the family of the church that I go to. But a lot of times we try to make it appear as if though it is the other people, but when we really need to examine to see if it's us. Am I where I need to be as a member? Am I lovable? Am I teachable? Am I approachable? Am I at a point to where I just don't like you? See, it's better for, I would rather for somebody just tell me, say, Sister Kirksey, that don't look good what you got on. You need to go change that. I'd rather for somebody to be honest with me versus them allowing me to step out any kind of way. What am I trying to tell you? You're so busy trying to comply to people, and you're upset because pastor is ignoring you. You're upset if first lady is ignoring you. And the thing about it, you don't even realize how the enemy will use whispers to whisper. I tell people all the time, don't ever let a seed get planted in your heart. People can throw seeds your way, and they're trying to make it appear as if though they're saying it out of a good way, but in actuality, they're really trying to sow a seed in your spirit. That's why you got to cast down, pull down every imagination that exalted itself against the knowledge of God. They are so seeds and tell you, say, well, what you think about da 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 da? What you think about this going in the church? What you think about that's going on in the church? They'll go to you and have you thinking on that ungodly seed. Have you thinking and planning and what that seed is doing. It hasn't taken root yet, but the thing is that as time continue to grow, they throw more dirt about the ministry, more dirt about the preachers, more dirt about how pastor this, pastor that, first lady ain't friendly, that first lady ain't this or that, they are not concerned, they don't love you. It's just throwing more dirt on the seed. But if you don't dig up that seed and uproot that seed, that once that seed plant in your heart, you're going to move and respond off of that one seed. That one seed will make you look at church and you getting funny eye looks to the one that sowed the seed, because the one that sowed the seed is offended, because the one that gave you the seed is offended, because the one that probably gave you the seed is trying to lure you out of your church, is trying to pull you away from your ministry, but because you're an offense, you don't know it. You can't see it. You thinking that don't nobody see it. But one thing I've come to learn is that I watched a lady who had 18 children in our neighborhood. And I even watched some people who do have 16 and 18 and 20 children. And I thought to myself, coming where I am now, and I was thinking to myself, there had to be at some point that with her, with all of those children around her, she had to pass on some responsibility to get some of the responsibilities off of her, to get them to grow up, to get them to mature. Now let's talk about ministry. What happens when pastor places people in position that you don't like? What happens when pastor put people in position that you're not favorable of? What happens when pastor put you up under somebody that God has assigned to bring your character up to the maturity of the ministry? Do I leave because I do not want to work with them? Do I walk away from my responsibilities? Do I walk away now because I'm up under their government and pastor have placed them? Listen, God doesn't look at how old or how long we've been in ministry. God look at our loyalty. God look at faithfulness. God look at our commitment. A lot of people probably looked at Joshua and said Joshua shouldn't be the next one, the ruler. He shouldn't be the one that was anointed to be Moses' successor. There's other men and elders in the priesthood that's better than Joshua. But God didn't see Joshua like everybody else saw Joshua. And I come to tell you, whoever your pastor had placed charge over you, God does not see them like you see them. Yeah, you see their flaws. Yeah, you see how messed up they are. Yeah, you see how confused. But God does not see where you see. God sees long term. You see short term. And the enemy will make you start looking at your ministry short term. The enemy would start telling you, I think it's time for you to leave. He will give you reasons to leave. He'll show you reasons. He'll give you confirmation. He'll send people to you out of the woodworks. He'll send prophets to you out of the woodworks. Amen. Wandering prophets, water without rain, no clouds, no substance, no character, and just prophesy to you and tell you, I think your season is up at that church. You know, God has always, I've done that in the past, and I've told people that you're going to lead this ministry. But you know, God started telling me, say, Prophetess Kirksey, where you sending the people? Where are you guiding my people? Who are you sending them to? You're sending them into a place in the wilderness that all they're doing is searching, and searching. And after a while, they don't even have an idea of where they're going. And so God had to learn to teach me that if I'm going to tell a person that, make sure you lead them to their pastor. Make sure you let them know to go get consent from their pastor. Because a lot of times people will release you in error. Honey, I'm telling you, you can't walk and you can't accept everything or every prophecy that comes your way. The enemy will send you prophecy to make you get astray, to make you go ahead of God. You can't live your life based on prophecy. You can't live your life based on the opinions of other people's ministries. Amen. Other church members. Amen. You got to know God for yourself. Then let me tell you something. That is one thing about a good shepherd. A good shepherd see one of their sheep going astray, and all of a sudden they know how to use the staff to pull them back in. And let me tell you something. When your pastor's trying to pull you back in position, when your pastor's trying to pull you back in order, don't you rebuttal. Don't you buck. Don't be like a bull that they got to throw a rope and try to pull you in. Some pastors get tired of chasing you. Oh, girl, you're talking ministry today. Some pastors actually get tired of whining saints. I'm going to tell you because I'm a pastor's wife, so I could tell you. Some pastors get tired of some members that are always belly aching, crying about this little small, minute problem, that is always crying about something that does not even have a great value. But the enemy will blow that thing out of perspective. The enemy will blow that little small situation out of proportion and tell you that pastor got respect of person. Pastor don't love me. Pastor's always this and that. Baby, let me tell you something. I'm going to interject this in here because I think it is very needful that it be interjected in here. I want to tell everyone that is on Facebook Live today that if you had natural problems with your mom, with your dad, if you had problems communication, if there's been a breakdown between you and your natural parents, I want you to go before God. I want you to pray before God. I want you to ask God to heal the broken places of your childhood. Ask God to heal those places because you're going to penalize and you're going to have those same reflections and actions on the same person that's trying to be your pastor, that's really trying to love you. You can't take your frustration out on your pastor, out on your leader for things that you've encountered in your childhood with your pastor, with your mom, with your dad. You can't hold first lady to the things that your mom took you through. You can't hold your pastor to the things that you've held, against your own natural father. You got to get healed. You've got to allow therapy to that everything that has happened in your life has to go back to our childhood. That little girl in you has to be healed. Let me tell you something. Prophecy will not always heal you. I can prophesy and tell you God's getting ready to heal your wounds from the things you encountered as a little child. God's going to heal you from the wounds of your father and of your mother. But I want to tell you also, you need some counseling. You need somebody to pour a saturated oil in that womb to help what? Sometimes you need a purging. Sometimes you need purifying to get all of that unforgiveness and that bitterness and that resentment out of your heart. That's why I'm cautious now. I am more cautious than I ever been in my entire walk with God of how I deal with people and how I embrace people now, because I need to know and they need to know that, listen, don't hold me accountable. Don't put me in the cage. Don't put me in prison for the things your mom have carried you through. Don't put me in prison as a first lady from the things that if your mother wasn't there fully for you. Don't hold me captive. Don't hold me responsible. I can love you. I can love you as a first lady. I can love you, amen, to the degree that God would allow me to love you. But then there'll be a time that God will ask me to step back and let him do the complete healing that is needed in your life. Let me tell you, I want you to love ministry. I want you to be indebted to your ministry. I want you to be loyal to your pastor. I want you to be faithful to your pastor. I want you to be committed to your ministry. But stop holding pastors responsible